crazy. That was insane. I'm so gagged, like, I don't even. Wow. Welcome back to the channel, you guys. As you saw by the title of this video, today I am coming to you to discuss my thoughts on Chloe Zhao's recent directorial film, Hamnet. Hamnet is a film that stars Jessie Buckley as our lead protagonist and Agnes, Paul Mescal as our supporting lead actor as William, and Jacoby Jupe as Hamnet himself, plus a slew of other great performers who I won't name right now because it'd just be too much to do. The film is produced by Focus Feature Films. It's written by Chloe Zhao and Maggie O'Farrell, but I think Maggie O'Farrell's only there because Chloe Zhao adapted this film from the novel Hamnet that I believe Maggie O'Farrell wrote. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it is directed by none other than herself, Miss Chloe Zhao. So what's my history with Chloe Zhao? I don't have an extensive history with Chloe Zhao. I think the first time I ever heard of Chloe Zhao's name was around the time of Oscars 2021, which was for the year of 2020 films, and where Chloe Zhao was a director for the film Nomadland. And I still haven't seen Nomadland to this day, and I didn't see Nomadland back then because you could say whatever reasons, whether it was COVID during 2020, or I was in college still during 2020, or I was working 2 full-time jobs during 2020, or, you know, all the other things that were going on in society during that year. But I just felt like that year film was kind of like a level low in terms of like, I don't know, buzz or like quality in a sense. When you look back at the Oscar season from that year, it just wasn't, I don't know what this is. Like, look, we can go through it. Best Picture noms for 2021. You have Nomadland, you have Sound of Metal, you have Mank, you have Minari, you have Promising Young Woman, you have The Father, you have Judas and the Black Messiah, and then you have The Trial of Chicago 7. Literally the only films on this list that like I actually like care about and think are films like to even be talking about are Minari and Judas and the Black Messiah. I think everything else here is just like dud central. Okay, and then even if you go to Best Director, like you have Chloe Zhao here who won for Nomadland, love that for her. I think she deserved it. But then you have Thomas Vinterberg here for Another Round. You have David Fincher here who, you know, David Fincher, legend, cool. And then you have Emerald Fennell here for Promising Young Woman. And then you have Lee Isaac Chung for Minari, which I believe that he should have been there as well. But it's when I read those names, I don't really feel anything. I'm sorry. I don't feel spark. I don't feel like, and maybe you could say it's because I wasn't tapped in then, but I don't think anyone really cares. I think 2021 Oscars is probably like the worst Oscar season in this decade so far. Even if you look at the Best Actor, like Anthony Hopkins won Best Actor. Well, now I'm looking like, who else should have won? I mean, Chadwick Boseman was nominated, and I loved for Chadwick Boseman to have left this earth with an Oscar. So I'll go ahead and say that I feel like Chadwick Boseman should have won, or Stephen Yeun for Minari. But the fact that Anthony Hopkins won. Anyways, back to what I was saying. So yes, I did not hear of Chloe Zhao until she won Best Director and Best Picture for Nomadland in Oscar 21 season. So that was early 2021. Now, when I really got introduced to Chloe Zhao's work was later on in 2021 when Eternals, Marvel Studios film, released. And Chloe Zhao was the director of that film. And I remember when Chloe Zhao was announced to be the director of Eternals and Eternals press started, a lot of people were like, ooh, like is the MCU taking a turn upward? Because prior to then, it was like 2021 and 2020 releases for Marvel Studio MCU films were kind of like dookie, right? And so a lot of people were like the MCU is kind of like not the same since Endgame. People still had faith in the MCU at this time. So people were like, oh my gosh, they just got like the director who just got Best Picture and Best Director at the Oscars is now directing a Marvel film. Let's see how this goes. It has like a star cast, you know, let's see what happens. And then Eternals comes out and people are not vibing with Eternals. Now, I'm not one of those people. I enjoyed Eternals. I did. There are some faults in Eternals, but there's faults in every single MCU film this decade. And I think Eternals is kind of one of the better MCU films this decade, honestly, in my opinion, even though I think there's some things that were just really, really odd about it. But that's what the MCU does. They just suck quality out of the people who are behind the film in totality. There's so many greats who have been a part of MCU films this decade who have put out bad MCU films, you know? And it's because that Disney Marvel engine, it's not working. There's a cog, there's a feather in the cog. It's not, something's wrong with the machine and they need to figure it out, right? So from Eternals, I didn't hear anything about Chloe Zhao until this year, until Telluride season this year, when Hamnet started being whispered around. There's a lot of people started whispering around about Hamnet during Telluride, which is where I believe that the film premiered in August this year. And I remember hearing a lot of whispers about it, just as I was hearing a lot of whispers about like Sentimental Value and a few other films, right? And so I was like, ooh, I really need to go see Hamnet, because people are like, oh my gosh, Chloe Zhao is like coming back. Like she's returning to her glory this year. Everybody needs to be on the lookout for her because she might really be taking it this year. So I was like, ooh, let me go ahead. And then it stars Paul Mescal. And if you don't know anything about me, you should know that I am fond of Paul Mescal. I just am. I love most of his work. I think the only Paul Mescal film I really despise is Foe. Yeah, don't watch that film by my recommendation. Anything else by him is quality. When did I see this film? I saw this film in early November. So I literally saw this film like I saw this film right after I saw Sentimental Value. And I saw Sentimental Value on a Wednesday, and I saw this film on a Sunday, an early screening, and it was packed out. It wasn't really like fully packed out. It was like a full place. Like there were still seats between people, and there was like, I had a space between me and a couple. So like, you know, it was good vibes. It was at Dolby. I had a Dolby viewing, and you know, if you know me, I do Dolby. I do Dolby. That is what I do. I don't do the big IMAX. I don't do 70 millimeters. I don't do 3D, except with Avatar. But I am like a Dolby girl. I just do Dolby. And I left that theater a wreck, y'all. Like a wreck. I was crying. As you can see at the beginning of this video, I left that theater like so emotionally like broken. I don't cry. Like I'm not a crier. I was, just to give you some lore on me, I was a crier as a child, right? Like all the way up until I was 13, I used to really cry. I used to like, my emotions really used to just flow out, and I would cry about anything that was really troubling me, right? And then a lot of stuff happened when I was 13, and it kind of broke me. All that stuff that happened when I was like 13, eighth grade really broke me. And after that, I was like, I'm not gonna cry anymore. Like nobody's gonna get this out of me. And I didn't cry anymore. Like I literally just held it up. I think since like I was 14 years old, I probably cried like a total of like 5 times maybe. And that's crazy because like, that's over a decade. And so now about 5 times, because I cried during my viewing of Hamnet multiple times, to the point where like there was like snot coming out my nose. I was weeping, I was breathing. I was like, whew, I was like, this is a lot. This is a lot. Oh my gosh. I know people said that this was going to be good. And they were coming out heartbroken and just emotionally like just ran down. But I didn't expect for myself to feel that way. Maybe my heart was just open that morning. I don't know, but it got me, and it really surprised me. It really did. And I even went and saw the film again the day before Thanksgiving, because it had released the Thanksgiving week officially. And so then I went and saw it the day before Thanksgiving at another showing. And, you know, I went in not believing that it would hit me as hard as it did the first time around, but boy, was that a lie. It hit me just as hard. I did not weep and cry and snot coming down my face during the showing, but I did shed like 2-3 tears during my second viewing as well. So that's how I knew that like my feelings about the first viewing that I had were proper, and it was real, and it wasn't just something going on with me. It was actually how the film made me feel, which I really loved as an experience, because I haven't had such like an emotional experience at the theaters in so long. And so it really was kind of like one of the highlight experiences in the theater for me this year, if I'm being completely honest. To give a quick overview of the film, Hamnet follows our protagonist Agnes, played by Jessie Buckley, as she sets off on a romantic and familial journey with her newfound love interest, William, played by Paul Mescal, where they encounter all of these trials and tribulations that come with trying to create an unconventional family during the 16th century, around that time, and protecting such a family every step of the way throughout their life. What trials and tribulations could I be hitting on? Well, in this film, like, there's a lot of things that it deals with, right? So we're dealing with like navigating society as an outcast or a black sheep. We're dealing with like finding others who identify with you as you do in the world. We're dealing with like sticking to your core morals regardless of the consensus that may surround you in your society. We're talking about like the pursuit of happiness and whatever that entails. We're talking about love, whether it be like between two people, or whether it be between like a person and their child, or a child and their parent, or just like a person in the world in general. We're talking about gain. We're talking about loss. We're talking about grief, a lot of grief in this film. And then we're talking about so many other things. And I think this film is like extremely multifaceted when it comes to the topics that it wants the viewer to digest. Obviously, you can see that I had a really, really great experience, and I'm very high on this film. I am. I have no notes for this film. Like I really don't. And so we could just go ahead and go into like the strengths of the film, and then we can talk about the criticisms after. Because like the strengths of this film that I feel like the strengths of the film are things that people think are really, really sucky about the film. And so I want to like combat that before I give credence to the people who have criticisms. Right. The first strength of the film is the pacing, in my opinion. I feel like this film is paced perfectly. Now, a lot of people don't feel that way. However, I do. I feel like you can feel it as each act commences, or as each like subplot commences, and you can feel like the beats and the escalation occurring properly. It's as if like you're not seeing it like in your head, but like you can just feel it occurring, and you can feel as like the acts start and as they end in a good way, not in a bad way. This film has about like 3 climaxes in my opinion. I think there's like 3 climaxes of this film, yes. So I would say that the first climax is where Agnes is giving birth to her twins, right? And then I would say the second climax is the death of Hamnet himself. And I would say the third climax is about like the Hamnet production at the end of the film in the third act. Now, a lot of people have criticisms of the pacing of the film, and I feel like the pacing was proper. But when people have issues with the pacing of the film, they're kind of saying that they feel that the pacing is terrible. They basically, a lot of people have been saying that like after Hamnet dies, they feel that basically like the momentum of the film fully just like goes out the window. I would disagree with that completely. So when we come to the first climax of the film, the birth of the twins, right? We've gone through so much. The birth of the twins does not come until the beginning of the second act. And we've gone through so much with our characters. And I know a lot of people feel like they didn't feel connected to our lead characters in Agnes and William. However, I did. From the second that we open and we see Agnes in the woods, the second that we see William spot Agnes, the second that they first converse with each other, to the second that they kiss, and then to the second that we just see like how they really, really are intertwining with each other, and seeing that even though they're both outcasts in different ways, where Agnes is somebody of the woods, and that's looked down upon, you know, somebody of nature and very a holistic person. And where William is somebody of the arts, and that's kind of looked down upon when you're somebody who comes from like his family, and he's supposed to be like a businessman to a certain extent, right? And how they come together and really like join in union and go against all the barriers and boundaries that are placed in front of them societally or like familially, right? So then you have Agnes, who has kind of like more of a supportive family. She really has Bartholomew, her brother, who's much more supportive for her than William's family is, where William doesn't really have anyone who's really like supporting him per se. However, you know, this is like the 16th century, so what the man says goes. And Bartholomew, he like grants Agnes the ability to go and create and start a life with William, and William's parents didn't comply because they're broke and they want money, right? And from there, then we see how Agnes gets pregnant with their first child, and we see how they go through that, and how then we lead up all the way until Agnes gives birth in the woods with their first child, and how Bartholomew and William find her, and then, you know, they have a child now, and then how it comes like after they have a child, after they become parents, how William now, he doesn't really feel like he's a dad now. He's a different person. There's a change in his life and his responsibilities and his trajectory forward in life. However, he doesn't feel like he has served William yet, and he feels like he really needs to serve whatever like artistic expressions that he wants to do, which is like theater, right? He wants to create stories, write stories, and put on productions. And Agnes supports him in that. She's like, you should go to London. Go to London, get everything you need out of London, get your creative juice off, so then you can be a better husband to me and a better father to our children. And then she reveals, you know, she's pregnant as well, and she goes. And from then, we then commence the first major climax, which is the birth of the twins, where William is now in London and he's away from her, and she's about to have this baby. She knows the baby's coming. Like, I think Agnes could feel that the baby's coming because she knew how it felt when she had her first child. But this time she doesn't have the freedom that she had the first time around with her first child, nor does she have William there to aid her in her wishes for giving birth, nor Bartholomew, who's her brother, who she was living with kind of at the time, or who was more present in her life at the time. Now she's staying with William's family, who are very traditionalists. They're very of the church. They don't believe in all the spirituality that she holds and the holistic views that she holds. So she now is trying to go to the woods, and they're like, no, you're not going to the woods. You're not going to the woods at all. And this was like so good, not to tangent out of what I'm trying to get to, but basically in this film, it really does deal with the topics of like spirituality and how like people who are in tune with the world and people who are in tune with religion, and how like how that complicates life as someone like who is a mother and who's giving birth, but just anyone who's just trying to be an individual in the world, right? And so here they refuse to allow Agnes to go into the woods to have her baby because they don't believe in all of that. It is slightly raining, so they're like, no, you can't go out, you're crazy, crazy, crazy. So then they force her to give birth in the living room, right? Or the birthing room, I should say. And then there's a lot of signs that Agnes is getting that this is not good, right? The first sign that Agnes has already had is that she was already told when she was younger that she was only gonna have 2 children, right? And so she believes that this baby's gonna come because she thinks she's only having 1 child. She believes this baby's gonna come, but she's like wondering, like, is this not gonna be my second child? Because she's like, it just doesn't feel right that I'm having to be restrained in this place. I shouldn't be having my baby. I should be having my baby in the woods, right? And then the second thing is that the water starts coming it starts flooding up into William's family's house, right? And so she's taking that as an omen, a bad omen. Like if there's, she said like some phrase that like, obviously I feel like if you read the book, it would have explained the phrase more, but basically, or if you just know Shakespeare, she was just basically saying that it's a bad omen to have the water flood and come towards your way while you're trying to give birth, right? And so she's like refuting, she's fighting them. She's like, no, let me go. Let me go to the woods so I can have this baby properly. And then she has her first baby, right? Which is a baby girl. And she's like, cool, like I got the baby up. But then another baby is coming. She doesn't know that she's having twins, but she is having twins. And so now she has to go and push another one. But now obviously this is 16th century. So having twins after having like such an aggressive birthing process for one baby is very, very dangerous. She could potentially lose her life here. And so, she does give birth to Hamnet, her second child, and he comes out stillborn, kind of. He comes out not breathing, and she's like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? And William's mom, they're just fully like, okay, the baby's dead, take him away. She's like, no, give me my baby, bring my baby here. And she pleads and she pleads and she pleads and she pleads with the earth, and she asks for the earth not to take her child from her. And then Hamnet comes back to life, and it's a miracle, really. But I feel like William's family didn't want to believe that she had that type of spiritual power within her, but she did. And it's so profound. And a lot of people have felt like that moment was emotionally manipulative, and we can go ahead and just get into that criticism of the film as well. Or maybe like let's hold off on that criticism of the film before I get to the other climaxes, right? But basically after she gives birth, that scene was, when I tell you emotional roller coaster, that scene had me like, whoa, this is a lot. And so in that scene, I didn't cry at that scene, but I was like, my heart was pumping, my heart was racing. I was like, whoa, that was really, 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 really intense, but in a good way. And I'm like, where are we going from here? So obviously she has those babies. And then we do a time jump. So then from this time jump, after that first climax, now we're building again. So I would say like we built from the bottom here up to right here, right? And this is like where she has the twins. And then from here, we're gonna build up to the second climax, which is the death of Hamnet, right? So after we get to this first climax where the twins are born, we then see a time jump 10 years into the future, I would believe, because I think Hamnet and his sister are about 10 years old, where everyone's living in the house, the twins are alive, William is back and forth between the house, between his productions. And so all the family's together, right? It's like another off season for William. So I believe he's there helping and aiding. And, Agnes is here. She's teaching her daughters how to be women of the forest and all of that stuff. And we're just getting a feel for the family, right? And like the kids are so adorable. And Jacoby Jupe, who portrays Hamnet, he's just putting on such a great performance here, I know. And a lot of people discount child performances because they feel like child performances are very like non-technical. They feel like children aren't being intentional with their performances, but this was very intentional. And I feel like Jacoby Jupe is not getting a lot of acclaim that he deserves for his role in this film. But we build up here all the way up until basically Hamnet's twin sister, forgot her name right now, I apologize, but she gets sick, right? And she's coming down with one of like, those very like aggressive diseases that plagued, England during that time back in the 16th century. And she's not recovering well. And so then obviously Hamnet is very, concerned, and he's like, what's going on with her? She's not getting better. And then Agnes comes and tries to help her. And we go through this whole ride of emotions where his sister is dying. She's on her deathbed, basically, right? And Hamnet then comes and he pleads with the god of death. He pleads with death, the spirit of death, to take him instead of his sister, because technically he was not supposed to be here. And I don't know if Agnes had told her children this, but you know, Agnes had told William that she was given like a prophecy that she was only gonna have 2 kids at her deathbed. And so obviously, like once Hamnet is revived in that first climactic scene where the twins are born, you already feel like, one of these kids have to go, right? Or like she's only gonna have 2 kids at her deathbed. So like, what does that mean? And so then the moment that Hamnet, or Jacoby Jupe, I should say, goes and lays by his sister and is pleading, being like, I'm going to trick the god of death to take me instead of you. And she's like, what? You know, she's out of her mind. She doesn't really understand what he's doing, but he is so powerful and he's so connected to the force and the world, like his mother is. Even though he kind of takes more of his father's attributes in the arts, he wants to be an actor like his father. He really has both of his parents within him. And it's so beautiful that they displayed it like that. And basically, he tricks the god of death, or basically the god of death takes him, when, you know, it's kind of like how it should have been, quote unquote, because Agnes kind of robbed, you know, the world balance of her destiny, where she's supposed to have 2 kids. And so now it's coming back to give her her destiny, and only having 2 children at her deathbed. So then we go through this like really, really emotional sequence where, you know, Agnes wakes up and she's like, okay, let's see if my daughter's well or not. She's not. And then you can see that Hamnet has taken on her sickness. Her daughter is well now, and Hamnet is now on his, you know, last few breaths. And it's a very, very emotional scene that leads to Hamnet dying in her arms. But then Jessie Buckley gives like this very, 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 very what is even the right word? Just a very, very strong cowl and like very loud cry. And it's not even like really, really over dramatic. It's just like really, really strong, and it hits you so hard. By the time that Jessie Buckley had even done that long cry, tears were already down my face. That whole entire sequence had everyone in my theater sniffling, huffing and puffing, crying. I was like, where's my napkins? Where are my napkins? When she did the cowl, snot out my nose. I was like, what is going on here? This is crazy. This is exhilarating, honestly. Even though it's like really, really sad, like this is like really, really exhilarating. And so I was in my seat like, whew, the film not even over yet. I was in my seat I looked at the time too. I was like, whoa, like we're only like halfway through this film. Like, what else could possibly happen here? Like, what else could this film do to me after it's already done so much? And so even that film, people have had the criticisms of feeling like that film is concocted and contrived and manipulative, right? And we'll come back to that after. The third climax of the film, in my opinion, is the final sequence, which is the Hamlet production that William has put on for London, basically, where Agnes and Bartholomew come to watch. The first show, I believe it is. And basically that, from Hamnet's death, obviously Agnes has a lot of resentment towards William. She's like, you weren't there when you're supposed to be there. I was there when when Hamnet died. You weren't. All this stuff that will, like, you know, every couple goes through when they go through losing a child or through miscarriage, right? It causes a rift between the parents, especially when one of the parents feels like the other one was insufficient or wasn't there when they could have been, or didn't do everything they could to have been a part of their child's life, or like to save their child in a sense. And so we see the rift that occurs there, right? And then we also see how Agnes is treating like her daughters in regards to this, which I think she's kind of treating her daughters better, but I think her daughters have become way more mature due to their brother's death. And then we go all the way down to when William is in London and he's dealing with his grief of his child dying, and he's like trying to get his production up and running, and he's like really coaching his actors and really trying to get them to embody what he wants Hamlet to embody. It's really like all his grief and his sorrow that he's feeling in regards to his child Hamnet dying is what he's trying to get his actors to portray on stage. And specifically the lead actor who's going to be playing Hamnet, who actually is Noah Jupe. And if you know Noah Jupe and Jacoby Jupe, who plays Hamnet, they're brothers, but Noah Jupe is the son in the A Quiet Place films, which I am very fond of. So when I saw Noah Jupe on the screen in the rehearsal scene with Paul Mescal, I was like, whoa, Noah Jupe is here too? Whoa. We're taking it up a level. Like, really, like, this took the film up a level for me, honestly. Like I know a lot of people are saying like they feel like it went nowhere after that second climax, but to me, like, it kicked it in another gear. We went up some more. And so then we finally get to this final sequence where Agnes and Bartholomew come to the Hamlet play, and they come to the front, and then like Agnes and Bartholomew, I guess because they're on the countryside, they never really been to like a theater before, in my opinion. I guess, I don't know, the book readers will have to tell me if that's true or not true, but they don't really understand like what's going on with the play and all of that. So then when Noah Jupe's character comes out on the stage and he's portraying her child, Hamnet, she's really caught off guard. She's like, what the hell? What is he doing? She hasn't really spoken to William. They're kind of estranged. They're kind of separated right now. So she's like, what the hell is going on? So then William comes out on the stage and he's playing Hamlet's father in the play. And then she sees him there and she's like, they're having a really emotional tuggle where he's giving this monologue. And then as he's walking off stage, you have Agnes who's like, turn around, please turn around, look at me. He turns around and looks, and he gives his final like line, and he goes off. And then like, we get this like really, really intense like like solo scene with Paul Mescal when he's in the backstage and he's taking off the makeup, and he's really just like, it was really, really a cathartic experience for him. And I think he didn't really expect Agnes to be there. And so it just was all hitting him at once. And I think Paul Mescal is really, really great in that whole entire sequence. Going back to the stage, right? Then we see the whole play almost. Like we just like keep skipping through pieces of the play, but we get to like the climaxes within the play itself of Hamlet. And we get to the part where basically like, Hamnet he figures out that like, they killed his father, and then he goes back and gets his revenge, but then he has to poison himself or whatever. He's dying. And as he's dying, he's in front of Agnes at the end of the stage, and he's reaching out. And then Agnes reaches her hand out and like asking him to like hold her hand. And he holds her hand. And then everyone else in the crowd reaches their hands out towards him. And my heart is beating at this point. I'm like, whoa, this is so good. Like, I'm sorry, like it's juice. Like Chloe Zhao got the juice, y'all. I'm sorry, like this film really did it for me. I'm just thinking back like, whew, I can't wait till this is on streaming because I need to see it again. But you can see in that moment, then Noah Jupe's character who's playing Hamnet, he falls to the ground, he dies. And then you see how Agnes, she's now seeing Hamnet himself go on in peace, and she's getting that closure from her child dying that she hasn't gotten in maybe like a year or so. And it's just so beautiful. And it's just so beautiful because we really went through this whole entire life experience with Agnes, with William, with Hamnet. And we got to see the beginning, the middle, the end, and the post of their love and their grief and their contentedness. That's really what this film is about. It's about contentedness with like the choices you make in life and accepting that and having internal peace from that. And that's what she gains at the end, in my opinion. I think she did gain the closure that she needed. I think Hamnet gained the closure he needed to go on because, as you know, if you've seen the film, William asked Hamnet to be brave for his family while he's gone. And that's what Hamnet went and did. He was brave. And he got that closure knowing that he was brave because at that final sequence, his spirit, in my opinion, is seeing Agnes get that closure herself. And it's just, it's so wonderful. And that's what we end the film on that. And I just really, really found the pacing of that film to be just spectacular. So the criticisms of the film in regards to those climaxes are that it's paced terribly. People are like, after, Hamnet dies, the intensity drops off. In my opinion, you're being pretentious. Anyone who says that you're being pretentious, please stop, get out of my face, stop talking. The second criticism people say are that they just felt like the emotionality of the film feels concocted. There's a lot of people who walked away from this, even before I saw it. I was reading a lot of reviews before I saw this film. And a lot of people were like, it feels like it's a soap opera. This feels like it's not really like real. Like none of the emotions that I'm seeing on the screen really, really feel like they're like true. They don't feel genuine. It feels all concocted. It feels like it's just throwaway things just to be there. And in my opinion, like that criticism really, really eats me up inside because half of the people who don't like, not haters, but half of the people who don't like Hamnet, they either say it's too much emotionality that they couldn't stand it, right? They're like, oh my gosh, like those 3 climax scenes, they were just too emotionally manipulative. It just brought so much out of me. Like, I just don't know what to feel about the film at this point. It just felt like it was just doing things just to get me there. And then the other half of the people who don't like this film are like, I felt nothing. I walked away from this feeling nothing because everything felt so fake and contrived and corny and charactery. And to me, both of those claims are absurd in my opinion. They're absurd in my opinion. Do I think that you have to like this film? No. Do I think that it's being disingenuous when you say that the emotionality of this film is not proper or it's contrived or it is manipulative? Yes. I think that it is very disingenuous. And because it's not like an Emerald Fennell film. You're not watching a film that's just like has a random turn of like sexual violence and just to make you feel something like deep and intense because like those are just deep and intense things and not because like the actual film built up a story that actually hits you deeply. That's not what's happening here. These moments where, you know, the twins are born and where Hamnet dies and the final climactic play sequence, those are built up over 35 minutes at a time. And very well, there's story there. It's based on a book, a well-regarded book, might I tell you. So it's, to me, like those claims that like the emotionality is fraudulent here really, really, really irk me, and I don't agree with those criticisms at all. Another criticism for the film, which kind of like is like coming from that criticism of the emotionality of the film, is people saying like the performances didn't hit from them. There's people who are like the long cry that Jesse Buckley gave out after Hamnet died felt like very, very like odd to them. Okay. And then you have people who are like, oh, Paul Mescal really didn't do it for me. And one of the examples that they love to give, people who don't like this film, one of the reasons that they love to give for Paul Mescal not hitting for them is because of the throwaway line, to be or not to be, right? And this is where we get into like wannabe cinephile territory, right? Because come with me, sit with me really quick. If you're somebody like me who's a wannabe cinephile, and you know, I was a theater kid, but I wasn't like the biggest theater kid, you're just not familiar with William Shakespeare stuff. You're just not. You just don't remember William Shakespeare stuff off the top of your head. I'm sorry. I'm just not that type of person. I'm a wannabe cinephile. I'm not the best cinephile in the world, right? Until we got to the third act, where they actually say William Shakespeare's full name out, I didn't even connect the dots that this was like a William Shakespeare production. Obviously, at the beginning of the film, they were like, this is based off the novel Hamnet, which is based on Hamlet, X, Y, and Z. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I didn't know it was gonna be like, you know, one-to-one recreation, but people are like, oh, that to be or to not to be felt like it needed to be more. It needed to be way more impactful. Such a strong, impactful line in culture. Why did it not hit for me in this film? It could not hit for you. It didn't really hit for me. To me, that scene just showed like it was just another moment where William is depressed and he's grieving and he's trying to, you know, use his art to cathartically get out his sorrowful emotions and his sadness, right? It didn't have to be that big for me, in my opinion, because I'm not coming here for William Shakespeare, like accuracy. That's not what I'm here for, okay? Speaking of, a lot of people have also been saying that like at the last scene of the film, the score that is used is like some score that people say has been used in all major films throughout the past decade or something like that. It's been used in like 10 or so major films throughout the past decade. And they felt like it was just like a really like cheap shot at trying to evoke emotion or pull emotion or lure the audience into the film even more during a scene that they felt like kind of like dropped the ball. I can't even tell you what it is. I'm not even gonna go look it up because I don't care. I don't care. You being like you heard a piece of a score or a song or soundtrack that's been used in other films, took you completely out of it. I just can't relate. I just can't relate because I'm just not that snooty about film like that. I'm just not. I'm sorry. And I know it sounds very immature for me to like respond to such criticisms that way because like yes, I've watched films before where I've heard a soundtrack or I've heard a score that's been used before in other things, but it was like actual music. It wasn't like actual soundtrack or score for a film. It was like actual songs that were placed into a film, not like the actual score or soundtrack. So if that really, really offended you and that really threw it out for you, cool, that's your prerogative. But for me, I feel like that's just you being pretentious, in my opinion. And another reason why that really irks me is because why now? Why now does that matter to you? If you're saying, these people are saying that like this score, this piece of the soundtrack has been utilized in many, many other major films throughout like the past decade, why is Chloe Zhao getting the whip? Why does Chloe Zhao have to get docked points? Did everyone else get docked points? Let me go back and see if you've docked points for everyone else in regards to that. If you did, good on your part. But if you didn't, shut that up. Another strength about this film is the cinematography, in my opinion. The cinematography is conducted by Lucas Zach, and after my second viewing of this film, the cinematography, when it comes to the aerial shots that are conducted in this film, I then thought, are these aerial shots us looking at our characters through the perspective of the god of death? Because I don't know if you remember, but earlier on in the film, William, he sees like a puppet play kind of, and he sees that like there's like a family on the shore in the puppet play and there's a god of death above them looking down at them. And then I thought to myself, whoa, all these aerial views that we're getting and they're of our characters, are we the god of death in these situations? Wow, if so, then I think that's like a really, really neat touch to the perspective that the film creators are giving us to the story. Another thing about the cinematography that I found that was really, really neat were all the perspectives that we were given during the last sequence of the film, during the play of Hamlet, and how we got like perspectives from the actors on stage, where we got like first person view from like the end of the stage, where we got the audience view, where we got view from the backstage where William was standing. I think everything surrounding that was really, really great. Oscar talk. Let's talk about Oscars. Obviously, like this is one of the buzziest films for the Oscars, right? I feel like after One Battle After Another, after Sinners, those two are like the top two contenders for like Best Picture right now, and like taking anything, honestly. But I think after that, then Hamnet is like third place right now. I think Hamnet is only third place because they haven't really been. Chloe Zhao and the Hamnet team have not really been promoting this like as hard as they could be. Maybe they're waiting for January, end of January when the nominations come out, and they're trying to go hard for the whole that like SAG BAFTA era. Maybe, who knows? We'll see. But in regards to Oscars, I think like this is definitely getting like in Best Picture, right? This is definitely getting a Best Picture nomination. It's definitely getting a lead actress and Jessie Buckley nomination, who I think should win. I want Jessie Buckley to win, even though I think Renata Rinsby in Sentimental Value is really, really great. I don't think she's just giving like a lead performance like Jessie Buckley is. I don't think anyone is giving a lead performance like Jessie Buckley is in any film this year outside of Jessie Buckley and Eva Victor. But Eva Victor's not getting nominated, so if my number one can't get in, my number two got to get in, and that's Jessie Buckley. Best Director, definitely going to get a nomination for Chloe Zhao. Best Adapted Screenplay, I believe they're going to get that. I don't know if they're going to win. Potentially they could win. If they're not getting Best Director and they're not getting Chloe Zhao anything, if they're not good, I feel like the sure things could be here are Best Actress, Best Lead Actress, I should say, and then Best Adapted Screenplay potentially, right? And then you also have Best Supporting Actor in Paul Mescal, who I think is definitely going to get a nomination. Don't know if he's going to win because obviously Benicio del Toro is like taking the reins on that race right now. And then you have Stellan Skarsgård, who's also in contention. And then somehow Jacob Elordi has got into the conversation, but Paul Mescal I feel like is definitely going to get a nom. I hope he does. I hope once he gets a nom, he starts campaigning a little bit more, because I think I would like for him to get a little bit more notoriety for his role here. I know he's focused on other things like the Beatles films that are going to take until 2030 to come out, but let's still do our job. Let's do our job, Paul. Please, 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 please. You've got supporters who are trying to get you places. Like, we trying to get you places as your supporters, but we need you to get yourself there. Another nomination that I think should occur for supporting actor is Jacoby Jupe, but the Academy is ageist, and we know this, and a lot of people who watch the Oscars are also ageist. A lot of people think it's absurd when you say that a child should be nominated for an Academy Award, a lead main category Academy Award, and to me that's like stupid. That's stupid in my opinion. There's no reason that children don't win Academy Awards. Now granted, there hasn't been a lot of children performances, because obviously if the Academy doesn't value child performances, people are not going to center child performances in the film landscape. And that's just what has occurred over the last decade. But I feel like Jacoby Jupe, he has given a really, really great performance, and he really is the crux that holds the middle of this film together. So bravo to him, even if he doesn't get a nom. And they're definitely going to get all of the technical categories as well. Not all of them. I don't know if this film's going to get into sound and score. I really like the sound. I like all the wind sounds. I like all the water sounds. I like all the nature sounds that happen here. I know a lot of people who don't like this film, they say the score sucks. They don't really like any of the sound that's going on, so maybe they're not going to get that. I think editing, potentially they're going to get nominated there. I don't know if they're going to. Maybe not. Who knows how the technical categories are going to work out for Hamnet. I don't really know how anyone thinks Hamlet is going to be perceived, honestly, by the Academy at this point. It's really like a throw up in the air, I think, because it has Chloe Zhao behind it, and it is one of the biggest notable films of the year that it's going to get a lot of, recognition in the lead categories. But on the back end, we'll have to see. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Hamnet. Are there any other honorable mentions I want to do? Another thing about the cinematography that I loved was that one shot where William is leaving his family. This is before the kids get sick, so this is when he's going back to London, but he has all three kids. This is after the time jump. Hamnet is alive, and he's leaving his family, and there's a shot from the corner of the street, right? And so you have the corner of their house that they live at, and then you have the two roads that divide them. And so on the left side, you have Agnes, and you have Hamnet, and you have his sisters right there, and then you have in the center, you have William, and Hamnet runs to William. Well, they all do a group hug, and then they all walk away, but then Hamnet stays with William, and they're hugging, and they're, giggling and doing little banter before he leaves. And then, they do a little game of, who says bye first, who's going to say bye first. And then, you see, they both go opposite ways in a triangle, and I really, really like that shot. I thought that shot was, really, really nice. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on Chloe Zhao's Hamnet. If you agree with me, let me know in the comments. If you don't agree with me, let me know in the comments as well. I feel like a lot of people don't really like this film, but I love this film. And I think anyone else who loves this film, you have a friend and partner in me, right? We can cry together when we watch it at home. Speaking of, I need this film like to be on streaming like soon. Why is this film not on streaming? Like, why is Cinema Value not on streaming? Why is Hamnet not on streaming? Why is It Was Just an Accident not on streaming? Like, why are these things not on streaming? I know they're gonna wait until they get Oscar noms so then they can like push it harder then, so then everybody goes watch it like right after it gets Oscar noms. But I hate that. I really hate these like end of December, beginning of January season. Like it's just such a frustrating time for people who really want to watch like films who are being talked about like throughout the whole industry for the Oscar season. It really grinds my gears and frustrates me, but I'm gonna hold out because when Hamnet is available on streaming, I will be the first person seated to watch it with a glass of wine and something nice to eat and maybe a box of tissues. But yes, as I always say, I'm just a wannabe cinephile, and these are my thoughts. It is the last day of the year, FYI, and I do want to let everyone know, just, make 2026 like the best year possible. I think I'm going to try to make 2026 a very monumental year for myself, and so this will probably be the last video that's posted before the year 2026. And so let's just, have a good time. Like, I think this is my goal. Like, I just want to have like the best time possible in 2026. Also, I want to accomplish all the goals that I've kind of had it swirling in my head for a while. And so I think like major accomplishments across the board for 2026, and I'm wishing that on myself, but I'm also wishing that on you. So I say all of that just to say Happy New Year. Thank you for the views. Thank you for giving me my channel attention, and let's see where this channel goes in the next year. I do want this channel to grow a lot, and I hope it really does, and I hope that you're here with me through all of it. And so I will see y'all in the next video in the new year. Bye.